At my sister's wedding, I wore my dress uniform. I even brought flowers for Mum. But before I reached the chapel door, Ellie's new husband walked toward me. "Clara, your mother said you shouldn't be here. It might ruin her big day." I looked past him. Mum was laughing at the altar, holding Ellie's bouquet like it was hers. And just like that, I understood. I wasn't family. I was never meant to be. I was 8 the first time I realized I wasn't anyone's priority. The community centre closed at 6, and I'd been waiting on the front steps since 5:30, clutching a drawing I was proud of, me and my mum at the zoo, holding ice cream cones. But by 6:15, the sun had started to dip behind the roof, and the other kids were long gone. Even the janitor gave me a pitying look as he locked the doors behind him. "She probably just got caught in traffic," I mumbled, more to myself than to him, but I knew. It wasn't the first time she forgot. And it wouldn't be the last. Eventually I began walking, 2 miles in near darkness, my backpack thumping against my spine, the crayon drawing now crumpled in my hand. When I reached the house, I saw Mum's car in the driveway. The porch light was on. Inside, laughter spilled through the windows. I opened the door and stepped into music and chatter. Ellie was twirling in a new dress, soft pink with lace trim. Mum clapped, capturing videos on her phone. "You look like a princess," she squealed. She turned and saw me, wet shoes, scratched knee, drawing limp in my hand. "Oh, Clara," she said, "you walked?" I nodded. "I'm so sorry, sweetie. Ellie had her dress fitting. We just lost track of time." Just like that. Dismissed with a smile and a shoulder squeeze. I looked down at my paper, once proud of it, now limp and bent. I crumpled it slowly, 1 inch at a time. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the ceiling. I didn't cry. I didn't tell her it hurt. I just learned. I learned that forgetting me wasn't a glitch, it was a pattern, and patterns don't lie. My 9th birthday was on a Saturday. I knew better than to expect a party. We didn't have many of those growing up, unless it was for Ellie, but I still hoped. Just a small cake. Maybe Mum would sing. That morning I came downstairs to find the kitchen filled with balloons and streamers. My heart jumped. "Happy birthday, sweetie," Mom said, carrying a cake from the fridge. I walked closer and froze. The icing read, "Happy birthday, Ellie." I blinked. "But today's my birthday." Mum looked confused for half a second, then recovered with a chuckle. "Oh, sweetheart, you know Ellie's birthday is coming up too. We're just celebrating early. 2 birds, 1 stone. But mine's today." She leaned down and wiped a crumb from my chin. "Don't be difficult, you're both special." Except I wasn't. Everyone sang to Ellie. They handed her gifts wrapped in shiny paper, while I stood behind the kitchen island watching. She twirled, laughed, performed the songs she learned in dance class. Mum took photos of her blowing out the candles. No one noticed I hadn't had a single slice. Later that evening, I asked Mum why she didn't get my name on the cake. She sighed, exhausted. "Clara, I already did all this work. Can't you just be happy for your sister for once?" That was the moment it clicked. In this house, love had a name, and it wasn't mine. I was 10 when I won the district's elementary art contest. My piece, a swirling mural of trees, smoke and fire trucks, was displayed at the city library for a whole month. My teacher said it had raw emotion. She said I might have a future as an illustrator. They gave me a ribbon, a framed certificate and a photo with the mayor. I was proud, really proud. When I got home, I placed the award on the kitchen counter. Mum barely glanced at it. "You didn't tell me you entered this." "I wanted to surprise you," I said, cheeks warm with excitement. She picked up the certificate, squinted at the name, and then at the title of the drawing. "Against the Fire?" "Clara, this looks dark. What would Ellie think if she saw this?" "It's not for Ellie. It's mine." She sighed. "I just think, maybe don't show it around too much. You know how sensitive your sister is. She might feel left out." That night, I put the certificate in a drawer. A few days later, I overheard Mum talking to our neighbour from behind the kitchen door. "She's just so different from Ellie," Mum said. "I don't know where I went wrong with Clara. It's like she came out of nowhere, like some mix-up at the hospital." They laughed. I didn't. I stood in the hallway, barefoot, holding the ribbon I had planned to hang on my wall. My fingers crumpled it slowly, piece by piece. That was the night I stopped bringing home good news. Because good news didn't belong to me, it belonged to Ellie. And anything that wasn't about her wasn't worth celebrating. It happened in winter, a few months before high school graduation. I had stayed late for yearbook committee, and the sidewalk outside the school was slick with ice. I slipped while rushing to the bus stop, heard the crack of my ankle before I felt the pain. I couldn't move. Couldn't stand. My phone had 2% battery left. I called home. Mum picked up on the second ring. "Clara, I'm at the salon with Ellie. She has her winter recital tonight. Can I call you back?" I fell, I whispered. "I think I broke something." She exhaled loudly. "Seriously? Right now? Ellie's getting her hair done." "I'm in the parking lot. I can't walk." There was a pause, then a short click. The line went dead. 40 minutes later, a janitor found me curled against the wall, shivering. He called an ambulance. I spent the night in a hospital room, ankle fractured in 2 places, stomach growling from not having eaten since lunch. The nurse brought me Jell-O and a juice box. I thanked her with tears in my eyes. Around 10 o'clock, Mrs. Harper, our neighbour, showed up. "Your mum called me," she said gently, adjusting the blanket over my legs. "She said she couldn't leave the recital, asked me to check in on you." "Did she ask if I was okay?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "She said to tell you not to worry her tonight." That was the moment it changed. Not in her, but in me. I realized she could have come. She just chose not to. And that's what hurts the most about being forgotten. It's not the absence, it's the decision behind it. 2 months after the cast came off, I received the acceptance letter. The National Fire Academy, full scholarship, competitive program. Only 12 women had made it in that year. I ran home with the envelope clutched in my hand, my heart thudding. For once, I thought, maybe she'd smile. Maybe she'd say she was proud. Mum was folding laundry in the living room when I arrived. "I got in," I blurted. "The academy, I made it." She looked up, towel in hand, brows slightly raised. "The fire thing?" "It's not just a fire thing, it's the National Training Centre. Mom, it's huge." She sat back on the couch. "So, you want to run into burning buildings for a living?" "It's not just that. I want to help people. I've trained for this. I earned it." She pressed her lips together, thinking. "Clara, you've always been so intense. I just thought maybe you'd do something softer, something more appropriate." I stood there, words tangled in my throat. She folded another towel. "I mean, Ellie's planning to study education. Help kids. That's still helping people and it's safe, you know?" "She's not me." "No, she isn't." And that was the end of it. No celebration, no dinner out, no call to Grandma. She didn't even ask when I'd be leaving. That night I packed quietly, folded my own shirts, labelled my own boxes. In the background I heard Ellie humming in her room, her laptop playing music for some dance routine. I had thought for a second that doing something big would change things. But sometimes, no matter how loud you shout, they still don't hear you. Because they were never listening to begin with. 3 months into the academy, I responded to my first real emergency. An apartment complex had caught fire. We were there as trainees, shadowing the senior responders. The smoke was thick, the screams louder than sirens. Instinct kicked in. While others hesitated, I followed a sound, cries from a stairwell. I found a mother and her 2 children trapped behind a collapsed beam. With help, we cleared the path, led them out, and got them to safety. Later that night, the local paper ran a small story. "Trainee saves family from fire." It didn't name me, but someone had snapped a photo, me kneeling beside the kids, oxygen mask in hand. I clipped the article and mailed it to Mom. I didn't add a note. I thought the picture would speak for itself. A week later, the envelope returned. Unopened, a red stamp across the front. Return to sender. Address unknown. But I knew the address was correct. I'd written it 1,000 times before. I stood there in the academy mailroom, envelope in hand, throat tight. Back in my bunk, I opened the envelope, smoothed the paper, and tucked it into the back of my journal. I didn't cry, I just let the truth settle like ash. Some people don't reject you once, they do it again and again, until rejection becomes the language between you. The photo popped up on my feed one afternoon. A smiling group crowded around a banner that read, "Happy Retirement, Janet." My mother stood in the centre, arms wrapped proudly around Ellie and 2 of her cousins. Balloons floated in the background, champagne glasses raised mid-toast. I blinked, unsure if I was seeing it right. It wasn't the party that stunned me. It was the fact that I hadn't known it happened. No one had called, no one had texted, not even a generic forwarded invite. I scrolled through the comments. "You deserve this, Janet. So proud of you. Best teacher and best mum. Best mum." I stared at the phrase for a long time. Was I missing something? Had I crossed some invisible line that marked me as not invited? Or had I simply been erased from the group chat, from the mailing list, from the family tree? Later that night, I called the house phone, just once. No answer. I didn't leave a message. Instead, I sat in the quiet of my apartment, lit only by the glow of my screen, and stared at the party photo again, at their faces, at the life they lived without me. The caption read, "Only the people who matter most." Maybe that was their way of telling me. Again. A month later, I mailed a birthday card to Mum. Nothing fancy, just a simple card with pressed daisies on the front and a handwritten note inside. I wrote, "I hope your day is peaceful. I still remember the way you used to hum in the mornings. Clara." I added a small photo of us from when I was 5. We were at the park, me on her lap, both of us smiling. A rare good day. I double-checked the address, triple-checked the zip code. 2 weeks passed. No reply. Then one afternoon the mailman handed me a thick envelope. It was my card, returned, stamped with the same harsh red ink. No recipient at this address. I stared at it, heart pounding. I knew what this was. It wasn't a mistake, it was a message. They didn't want me, not even a neutral gesture, not even my handwriting, not even a memory. It was like I never existed. That night, I sat at the edge of my bed, cards still in hand, and realized something I had avoided for years. They weren't just forgetting me. They were deleting me, erasing every trace, rewriting the family history, removing the name Clara from the record, and there was nothing I could do about it. Ellie's wedding was on a crisp autumn afternoon. I wasn't invited, but I went anyway, not out of spite, not out of desperation, but because, deep down, I still believed that showing up meant something. I wore my dress uniform, the same one I hadn't touched since graduation. I pressed the seams twice, polished the buttons, tied my hair into the cleanest bun I could manage. I even brought flowers, lilies, Mom's favourite. The church was glowing with fairy lights. A string quartet played something elegant. Guests bustled toward the entrance in soft pastels and polished shoes. I stood outside for a minute, breathing. Then a man in a dark suit approached, Ellie's fiancé's brother. I recognized him from a photo once. "Clara?" he asked, gently blocking the path. I'm sorry. Your mother asked me to speak with you." I waited. He hesitated, then added, "She said it'd be better if you didn't come inside, that this day is delicate, that your presence might complicate things." I looked over his shoulder. Through the open doors I saw Mum laughing at the altar, arranging Ellie's veil, glowing like she was the bride. There wasn't an empty chair in sight, except maybe the one that never existed for me. I handed the flowers to the man. "Give these to her," I said, voice steady. "Tell her they're from Clara, the daughter she once knew." And then I turned and walked away. After the wedding, I didn't go home. I drove straight to the Veterans Rehab Centre where I worked, my second home, the place that never turned me away. I changed into scrubs, tied my name badge on tight, and began my shift like any other. Blood pressure checks, medication rounds, physical therapy logs. No one there cared about Ellie's wedding. No one asked why my eyes were red. Around noon, they assigned me a new patient, Monroe, age 78, recovering from a mild stroke. Navy vet, reclusive, didn't talk much. I knocked gently and entered his room. He sat by the window, arms crossed, eyes scanning the trees like he was expecting someone who'd never arrive. "Mr. Monroe," I said softly, "I'm Clara. I'll be helping you for the next few weeks." He didn't respond. I set the clipboard down and adjusted the blinds to ease the glare on his face. "We'll take it slow, one step at a time. You lead, I'll follow." Still nothing. But the next day, when I brought him a puzzle book, he nodded. The day after that, he asked for coffee. By the end of the week, he spoke in full sentences. Dry wit, quiet strength, eyes that held storms and secrets. "You ever lose something important?" he asked one evening as I checked his pulse. I paused. "Yes," I said. "Many things." He looked at me, then whispered, "Sometimes the loss is what saves you." I didn't understand what he meant. Not yet. A week later, Mr. Monroe had a health scare. His heart rate dropped suddenly during a routine blood draw. Alarms went off. Nurses rushed in. I was the first to reach him. "Stay with me," I whispered, gripping his hand. His lips turned blue for a second. His eyes rolled back. I held firm, gave orders with clarity. Compressions, oxygen, stabilization. It felt like being back in the fire. Heat, pressure, chaos. But we got him back. Later that night, he was stable again, pale but conscious. I sat beside his bed, brushing crumbs off his blanket. "You saved me," he rasped. I smiled softly. "You've still got years of sass left. Couldn't let you off the hook yet." He chuckled, then studied my face closely, too closely. "Wait," he said, voice raspier. "I know you." I froze. "You were there," he continued. "That fire in Detroit. Apartment complex. I was trapped under the stairwell. I remember your eyes. You pulled my grandson out first." My breath caught. I had no idea. He reached for my hand. "You saved us, and now, again." We sat in silence. Then he added, "I owe you twice. Guess it's my turn." I thought he meant it as a joke. But the next day, Monroe made a call to someone powerful. A week later, I received a sealed envelope inviting me to an annual recognition ceremony for silent heroes in public service. And this time, the invitation had my name on it, full name, spelled correctly, in gold. The envelope was thick, cream-coloured, embossed seal of the state. I turned it over in my hands for nearly an hour before opening it. Inside, an official invitation to the annual State Honours Gala, hosted by the Department of Civic Recognition, held at the Capitol building. Black tie. It wasn't just a form letter. The paper was weighty. My name was printed at the top in bold script, Clara E. Hastings. I had to read it twice to believe it. "Dear Ms. Hastings," it began, "you have been selected for recognition due to your long-standing service, courage in the field, and lifetime commitment to public safety." I stared at the page, unable to move. For years, I'd done everything in silence. No applause, no family waiting at ceremonies, just clock-ins, adrenaline, and paperwork. And now, someone saw me, really saw me. The next morning, Monroe sat in his usual chair, sipping coffee slowly. His eyes twinkled when he saw my face. "You opened it," he said. "You did this," I replied. He shrugged. "You did this. I just reminded them." I smiled. "You didn't have to." He looked out the window. "A long time ago, your father saved my life, pulled me out of a bad deployment. I never repaid him. Then I met you." I blinked. "You knew my dad?" Monroe nodded, slow and solemn. "Not well, but well enough to owe him everything. And now I owe you too. I sat beside him, stunned. He reached into his nightstand and handed me an envelope. Older, yellowed, slightly wrinkled. I was supposed to give this to you years ago, but I didn't know who you were until now. Inside was a letter, handwritten, from my father. If something happens to me and Clara's mother forgets who she really is, remind my daughter. She is everything good I've ever done. Protect her, if you can. Let her know I saw her. My fingers shook. For the first time in over 20 years, I cried in front of someone. And this time, it wasn't from pain. It was the kind of crying that comes when a missing puzzle piece finally clicks into place. The night of the gala arrived faster than I expected. I borrowed a dress from a co-worker, a deep navy gown, modest but elegant. Monroe insisted on buying me a pair of real earrings, tiny sapphires, subtle and strong. "You'll need something blue," he said, "like the calm before a storm." I laughed at that. The Capitol building shimmered with string lights and floral arches. Inside, the main hall gleamed with polished wood and golden chandeliers. A string quartet played near the stage. White tablecloths, linen napkins, name cards in fine calligraphy. I stood at the edge of the room for a while, unsure if I truly belonged there. Then someone tapped my shoulder. "Clara?" I turned. It was Ellie. She looked radiant, of course, soft curls pinned back, dressed like a cloud, smile that could melt glass. "Oh my God," she said. "You're one of the honorees?" I nodded, stunned. She laughed, a sharp, disbelieving sound. "Wow, Mom's going to die when she sees this." My stomach dropped. "You're here with Mom?" I asked. "Of course, I'm hosting." I blinked. "You're what?" "I'm tonight's MC," she said, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "I do media work now, small TV station, but they needed someone local, so here I am." Of course. I should have known. Ellie always ended up holding the mic. Mom appeared a few minutes later, dressed in ivory satin, pearls at her neck. She gave me a once-over and forced a tight smile. "You look well," she said. "Thanks," I replied. Neither of us said anything else. We were called to take our seats. I followed the usher to table 2, near the front close to the stage. Ellie's voice boomed over the speakers as she began her opening remarks, confident and rehearsed. I watched her glide across the stage, laughing with the audience, charming them all. She looked at home up there. Then she paused and glanced at her cue card. "And now," she said, "it is my honour to introduce our keynote speaker, Major General William Monroe." The room applauded. I straightened in my chair. He walked up slowly with a cane, but his voice was strong. "Tonight," he said, "we honour those who serve without glory, who carry courage in silence." He paused, scanning the crowd. "And one among us tonight has done more than serve. She has saved lives, endured loss, and remained invisible for far too long." I sat still, breath held. He turned toward me. "Clara Hastings, please join me on stage." For a moment, I couldn't move. The room was silent, eyes fixed on me, but it all blurred. My heart thudded in my ears, my legs felt locked. Then I stood. Applause rose, strong, sustained, echoing off marble walls. I walked toward the stage, every step heavy with disbelief. When I reached the podium, Monroe stepped aside and placed a hand on my shoulder. He faced the audience. "This woman," he said, "once pulled my grandson from a burning apartment. Years later, she saved me when my own heart gave out. She didn't ask for recognition either time." He paused. "But her story doesn't end there." Behind him, the giant projector screen lit up. A photo appeared, grainy, old, a firefighter in full gear, kneeling beside a family on a snowy sidewalk. The caption, Trainee rescues mother and 2 children. Another slide. A copy of a letter, handwritten, appeared on screen. Familiar scrawl, my father's letter. Gasps filled the room as Monroe read parts aloud. If something happens to me, and Clara's mother forgets who she really is, remind my daughter she is everything good I've ever done. My breath hitched. The words sank deep into the room like weight into still water. No one clapped, no one spoke. They just listened. And in that stillness, something shifted. I wasn't invisible anymore. I wasn't the background character in my own life. I was seen. I was heard. I was daughter of a hero, Monroe said, and a hero in her own right. He stepped back. Applause erupted. Not polite or brief, but thunderous, real. In the front row, Mum sat frozen, lips slightly parted, eyes wet. Ellie had stopped smiling. I looked out over them, then into the lights above the stage, and for the first time in my life I felt like I existed. After the ceremony, people lined up to shake my hand. Strangers, officials, veterans, nurses, journalists. They smiled, called me brave, said I inspired them, but I barely heard a word. My eyes kept drifting to the back of the hall, where Mom sat, still unmoving, and Ellie stood stiff beside her, arms crossed, lips tight. Eventually, they approached. "Clara," Mom said softly, voice almost lost in the clatter of departing guests. "That was unexpected." Ellie forced a half smile. "You were great up there," she said, but it didn't reach her eyes. I nodded, waiting. There was an awkward silence. Then Mum pulled in a shaky breath. "Why didn't you ever tell us about any of it?" I blinked. "I did," I said. "You just didn't listen." Her mouth opened, then closed again. "I was proud of you," she offered. "When?" I asked. Another pause. She fidgeted with the strap of her purse. "I suppose I didn't know how to show it. You were always so different." Ellie shifted uncomfortably. "Different isn't bad," I said. "Different just means you never tried to understand me." "We're trying now," Ellie said quickly. "That's why we're here." "No," I corrected, voice firm but steady. "You're here because the world finally saw me, and you didn't want to be the only ones who didn't." They both flinched. I held their gaze for a long moment, not angry, not bitter, just finished. "I don't need you to clap," I continued. "I needed you to care when no one else did." A beat passed, then I stepped back. "I'm glad you came," I said honestly, "but I'm not walking backward anymore." And with that, I turned away, past the stage, past the applause, into the quiet hallway that led to the rest of my life. 2 days later, my phone buzzed with a familiar number, Mom. I stared at it for a few seconds, then answered. "Clara." Her voice came through, hesitant and low. "I think we need to talk." I bit my lip, a mix of anger and something else I couldn't place, maybe disappointment, maybe just exhaustion. "About what?" I asked, my voice steady. "About everything. About how things have gone wrong between us." She paused, taking a deep breath. "About how I've failed you." I closed my eyes, the sound of her words sinking in like slow poison. "You haven't failed me. You've ignored me. You've erased me. And now that I'm standing here, finally being recognized by the world, you want to fix it." Another long pause. "Clara, please. I want to make it right." I could feel the weight of her words, but they didn't reach me, not the way they should have. All those years of silence, of rejection, of pretending I wasn't good enough, had built up a wall between us, a wall I no longer had the energy to tear down. "I don't need you to fix it anymore," I said quietly. "I'm done trying." The words hung in the air, thick with finality. "Clara, wait." Her voice cracked, but I didn't let her finish. "No," I interrupted, my voice firm. "I've spent my whole life waiting for you to see me, waiting for you to care. But I can't keep waiting anymore. I've learnt to care for myself, to fight for myself. There was a long silence on the other end. I heard her take a shaky breath. I think you should come home. We can have dinner, just the three of us, she said, trying to sound calm but failing. Let's start fresh. Please, let's be a family again. The words were desperate, but they didn't change anything. Not for me. I'm not coming back, Mum, I said. I've already found my family. I found them in the people who've stood by me. I don't need the past. I need peace. Another silence. This time it wasn't just her. Both of us were frozen, hanging in the air between the lines of our fractured past. I hope you find it, Clara, she said, her voice a whisper. I already have. And with that, I hung up. The next few days were quieter than I expected. I didn't get any more calls from Mom. No texts, no emails, just silence, stretching out between us like an old wound that had finally scabbed over, but never healed. I focused on my work, more shifts at the Veterans Centre, keeping my routine tight. The world kept spinning. The sun rose and set, and I, for the first time in years, felt like I was breathing in a way I hadn't before. Then one night, I got an unexpected visitor at the door. It was Ellie. She stood in the hallway, her hand on the doorframe, eyes wary. Clara, she said, voice softer than I'd heard it in years. Can we talk? I stood there for a moment studying her, dressed in a silk jacket, a soft blush of lipstick, everything perfectly curated to give the illusion that nothing had ever been wrong. About what? I asked. About everything, she said quietly. I know things haven't been great between us, but I don't want to pretend any more. I miss you, Clara. I want to fix this. I almost laughed. The audacity of it. You want to fix this? I repeated, my voice flat, after all the years of pretending I didn't matter. Ellie stepped forward, her hands folding in front of her nervously. I didn't know how to talk to you, she said, her voice trembling just a little. Mom, she made me think I was supposed to be the one who always got it right. She always told me how important I was, and I know it wasn't fair to you. I just looked at her. I didn't say anything for a while, letting the weight of her words hang between us. I'm sorry, Clara. I know I was selfish, she continued, voice breaking now. I know I wasn't there for you. I stared at her, the years of resentment bubbling up, but something else, the part of me that still cared, even if it wasn't enough anymore, paused me from speaking. Instead, I asked quietly, What do you want from me, Ellie? She shook her head, swallowing hard. I don't know. I don't want to lose you. I stood in the doorway, the silence pressing in. You already have, I whispered. Ellie flinched. Her face went pale, and I could see the tears welling in her eyes, but I didn't let them sway me. I'm not your backup anymore. I can't keep being the one you turn to when it's convenient for you, I said, voice barely above a whisper. I'm not doing this. Not anymore. She opened her mouth to speak, but closed it again, unable to find the words. She looked at me, eyes full of unspoken regret, and for the first time in years, I saw her for what she truly was, a girl who had always been lost and never learned how to love anyone but herself. With a heavy sigh, she turned to leave. I didn't stop her. As the door clicked shut behind her, I stood there for a while, the weight of the moment settling in. I had finally let go. The door closed behind Ellie with a soft click, and the quiet settled around me like a blanket. I didn't feel the anger I thought I might. I didn't feel the relief I'd expected either. Just nothing. I went back to my couch and picked up the book I'd been reading, something light, something to keep my mind off everything. But my eyes kept wandering back to the door, to the place where Ellie had stood. For a long time, I had tried to convince myself that I needed her, that I needed Mom. That family was worth fighting for, but somewhere along the way, I realised it wasn't true. Family doesn't walk away when you need them most. They don't treat you like a side character in your own life. And so I had to choose. I had to choose peace over the lie of belonging. I had to choose the people who had been there for me, like Monroe, like the team I had built around me over the years. They weren't related by blood, but they were my family in a way that Mum and Ellie could never be. I turned back to my book and took a deep breath, the first real one I'd taken in weeks. Later that night, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Ellie, it wasn't Mom, it was Monroe. "You did good, kid. You finally stood up for yourself. Don't go back." I smiled at the screen, the first real smile in a long time. Monroe's words felt like a validation I didn't even know I needed, a reminder that I didn't have to keep fighting to be seen by the people who refused to look. And for the first time, I didn't feel like a mistake. I didn't feel like the one who was always left behind. I felt whole. For the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged to myself. It's funny, the things you miss when you've spent so long running away from them. I spent months looking back, waiting for someone to notice me, to pull me back into the fold. I thought maybe if I tried hard enough, if I showed up, if I gave enough of myself, things would be different. But now, looking at the new life I'd carved for myself, I could finally breathe. I didn't need them to see me. I didn't need them to apologize. I needed to live. A few months after I'd turned away from Ellie at the door, I received an invitation, a simple, handwritten note, postmarked from a small town I didn't recognize. It was from someone I hadn't heard from in years, Monroe. I opened it carefully. Inside there was just a single line of text. "Meet me at the old park on Sunday. I think it's time to tell you what I never could." I folded the letter slowly, tracing the ink with my fingertips. I had been expecting this for a long time. I wasn't sure what he wanted to tell me, but I knew it would change everything. I showed up at the park that Sunday. It was an old, quiet place, a remnant of my childhood. The trees stood tall, their branches bare against the early winter sky. Monroe was sitting on a bench, looking out at the empty swing set. "You made it," he said when he saw me. I nodded, sitting beside him. "Everything's changed, hasn't it?" I asked softly. Monroe turned to me, a solemn look in his eyes. "More than you know." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out an old, crumpled envelope. "This is for you," he said, handing it to me. I opened it carefully. Inside was a faded photograph of my father, of me, and of Monroe standing together in a military camp years ago. I didn't recognize the exact moment, but I recognized the look on my father's face. He was proud, so proud. Monroe spoke slowly, his voice thick with memory. "Your father, he knew the day would come when you'd need to know the truth. He told me to keep this for you, to give it to you when the time was right." I stared at the photograph, feeling the weight of the years press down on me. "There's more to this than you know, Clara," he continued. "Your father wasn't just your father. He was a mentor, a friend, someone who believed in more than just the battlefield. He believed in what you could be, and that's why he trusted me to keep this secret." I felt the ground shift beneath me. Monroe leaned closer. "You were meant for more, Clara, and now it's your time to step into that." The words echoed in my mind, filling the empty spaces I hadn't known existed. For the first time in years, I felt ready to let go of the past and move forward. I wasn't going to wait for approval anymore. I was going to write my own story. The next few weeks passed in a blur of clarity I hadn't known I was capable of. I kept thinking about the letter Monroe had given me. My father's words echoed in my mind every day. "You were meant for more." But it wasn't just about the career or the recognition. It was about learning how to believe in myself without needing anyone else's validation. I returned to the Veterans Rehab Center, but this time I didn't feel like I was invisible anymore. My hands weren't just holding a clipboard, they were holding someone's future. I didn't need my mother's applause, my sister's approval, or the family I'd been denied. I was the one who decided what my life meant, not them. Monroe had given me the key to unlocking something I hadn't even known I was searching for: peace. For the first time, I wasn't haunted by what I had lost. I wasn't waiting for anyone to come and fix me. I had fixed myself. And then, out of nowhere, a call came. It was from the Pentagon. "Clara Hastings," a voice asked over the phone, "we'd like to offer you a position with the new Veterans Affairs Advisory Board. Your record speaks for itself and your expertise is invaluable." I felt the weight of the call sink in. My hands trembled slightly as I asked, "And how exactly did you get my name?" "We've been following your work for years, General. It's time your story gets told." I sat back in my chair, absorbing the gravity of it. It wasn't just an offer. It was a validation I hadn't even known I wanted. It was time. I hung up the phone, a smile tugging at my lips for the first time in years. This was mine, all of it, the respect, the recognition, the second chance to do something important. That night I sat on my balcony, watching the city lights below. The past had left its mark, but it wasn't where I was headed. I was standing at the edge of something new. For the first time, I was walking toward it, not waiting for someone to show me the way. And as I looked at the stars above, I thought of my father's words: "Be a dim star. Be quiet, constant, and never lose your heading." I was no longer lost. I had finally found my path. The following months were a whirlwind. I accepted the position with the advisory board and immediately started making waves. My role was to bridge the gap between veterans and the support systems they deserved, and for the first time, I felt like I was doing something that mattered, something lasting. The board was made up of experts in every field imaginable: military strategists, healthcare professionals, and even a few members of Congress. But I didn't feel out of place. My voice, my opinions, were heard. One evening, as I sat in a meeting reviewing new proposals for veteran care, I realized just how far I had come. I was no longer the forgotten daughter. I wasn't the silent soldier in the background. I was the one making decisions that would shape the future for thousands of veterans like me. And then there were the moments of quiet reflection, the moments when I wasn't in a meeting or meeting with the press. When I went to bed at night, the peace that filled the spaces in my heart was deeper than any victory I had ever known. For years, I had been living in the shadows of others, trying to prove my worth, but now I understood I had always been worthy. I had just needed to see it myself. One evening, as I stood by the window of my apartment, looking out over the city, I received an email. It was from the Solace for Soldiers Kids Foundation, the scholarship program I had quietly funded for years. There was a video attached. I clicked it, curiosity pulling me in. A young woman appeared on the screen, sitting in a small dorm room. She was smiling, though her eyes were a little misty. "Hi, Clara," she said shyly. "My name is Sarah, and my dad was Sergeant David Jensen. He was killed in action in Iraq. I was told this video might get to the anonymous donor who funded my scholarship." She paused, blinking back tears. "I just wanted to say thank you. My whole life, people have looked at me with pity. My mum works 2 jobs. College felt like an impossible dream. But you believed in me. Whoever you are, thank you for believing in me when no one else did." I sat there, my hand trembling as I wiped the tears from my eyes. The applause, the accolades, they never meant as much as this. It was the quiet moments, the unseen impacts that held the most weight. As the video ended, I closed my laptop, the city lights outside now blurred by my tears. I had finally found my true purpose. I wasn't here to be recognized by the world. I was here to change it, to offer something meaningful to those who needed it most. I sat back, feeling the peace settle into me like a soft blanket. My father had always said, "Be a dim star." I was no longer dim. I was shining, and I was doing it for the people who mattered most, the ones who could never say thank you, and for once, I didn't need anything more.